everyone to Drakewell Museum and Park's first ever Winter Academy. My name is Sarah Goodman. I'm the museum educator here and the moderator for this evening's program. For those of you who might be unfamiliar with Drakewell, the museum is located in Titusville, Pennsylvania in Venango County. We are located in the northwest corner of the state, just below Erie. And we are one of 24 historic sites owned by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and administered by the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission. And we have our support group, which is the Friends of Drakewell Incorporated, who is the group that actually helps us put this program on tonight. Drakewell preserves and interprets the site of the Drake Well, chronicling the birth and development of the petroleum industry in Pennsylvania and its growth into a global enterprise. Tonight, we are pleased to have you all join us, and we would like to thank Andy Lamont for presenting to us tonight, and also thank the Friends of Drakewell Incorporated for also helping us put this program on. And tonight we are here to shake off those winter blues and to keep our minds fresh and to learn more. Just a few logistics to remind you about, to go over before we start. Please keep your cameras off if at all possible, and also keep your microphones muted. If you have any questions or concerns or anything during the program while Andy and I are speaking to you, there is the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. You can just enter a question or comment there. Myself and also Aaron Winsick, who is the director of the Friends of Drakewell, will be monitoring the chat and answering those questions if we can, or we will save them for the Q&A period at the end. So let me take a moment here to introduce Andy. Andy Lamont is actually my cousin. That's how I know Andy, because many people are probably asking, well, why is someone presenting from Illinois? Well, I am very proud of this young man. Andy is from Southern Illinois, and his family owns the Save-A-Lot grocery store in Benton, Illinois. And this is how he kind of got into recycling, but we'll get into that in a moment. And he's really making that industry grow. And it's just an amazing feat for a young man to do this. And it's just fascinating, everything that Andy does and what he does for the environment. And so tonight he is here to tell a little bit about how he got into recycling, how he does what he does, and actually to help us get a few tips and things on how to recycle and maybe even how to start a recycling program in our own community. So thank you, Andy, for joining us tonight. And I guess my first question is, what really inspired you to create well, first of all, what is your company's name?
My company's name, thanks for having me, by the way. We call ourselves Do Your Part Recycling. It's just something small that you can do to help make larger changes around your community and the environment. So we started doing this. Our town used to provide a few dumpster bins for recycling. And that's how I really got started. I started taking a few items there. It got on my mind, well, if I'm recycling this, why don't I start recycling that? So that's when my passion grew. After a while, the dumpsters that were provided were getting abused. They were just in an empty lot where the public could just bring anything, and there wasn't much education around what recycling is, what you can bring. So it got abused. There would be mattresses, there would be toilets, and after a while, the town decided that that was a bad look, so they took the dumpsters away. I couldn't just stop myself from recycling overnight. So it slowly grew. I would just collect the materials myself and save them up and drive them to the next recycle center that was almost 30 plus minutes away. And that grew into something too large. I had told too many people this, and my truck would no longer haul it. So luckily, my family's grocery store already had the equipment to squish the material. So the grocery store goes through cardboard every day. You put new product up on the shelf, there's cardboard. So we have a machine that's called a baler, which just squishes the material down until you get a solid block of whatever you're doing. With the store, it's been cardboard. So luckily we had that machine. So I started taking the materials that the public would bring me and started using Save-A-Lot's baler. This started out, I would go set up once a week at the farmer's market in Benton, my town, and let the public bring me the materials. Well, once that ended, the farmer's market was only open until November. The public that was using it didn't want to obviously stop recycling. So luckily my father and Save-A-Lot let me open up a small drop off on the store's property. There's a pole barn that the store would use for overflow materials, and I got to take advantage of that. It started out as something fairly small, and it's grown substantially just by word of mouth. One person will say, hey, there's a recycle place behind Save-A-Lot, and that person will start using us a week later. So every day, week after week, we seem to see new faces, just like all of you. Now we've met, and hopefully this will get you more involved in recycling as it goes on. So it just started as a small passion project, and it has now turned into something way larger than I expected, and it just keeps getting larger. So this is good. That was a long answer to your question there.
That's all right. How long have you been doing this? Well, I guess, how long have you been doing it? And then how long has the lot behind the grocery store, the actual recycling center, been in existence?
Okay, I probably started back in 2000, I think 17, going to that farmer's market. That was when the town took the dumpsters away, and I was encouraged to start accepting the materials myself. And from there, I started behind the store probably in 2018, and it's been growing ever since then. It's not, I didn't set out to, hey, let's start a recycling drop off. It kind of just, the stars aligned. I was passionate about saving material from the landfill. It's insane how long that stuff can last. So it just, one thing led to another, and here we are.
So the recycling center, is it a 7-day-a-week operation? Is it just several days a week? How often are you open?
We try to be open 365 days, 24/7. Before we started this, I was taking materials to the other recycle center that's close to us, and I've tried to model myself off of things that they do or things that I thought could be improved on. And one thing I saw was, it's hard to take your materials if you're the one that has to take the recycling to somewhere. It's hard to just do it with between certain hours. You got to do it when you can do it, or do it when you're passing the place. And if they're only open from 9 to 5, you show up at 5:30, your car's full of recycling. So we try to beat that by being 24/7. We have lights, we have cameras, and that's what helps from it being abused as well. The town had it on an empty lot, no lights, no surveillance, no oversight. And that's a big problem, because if the public can just drop stuff off, they're going to drop everything off. So it takes a good location, and it takes 24/7 access. If something gets dropped off there that's incorrect, you can fix it quick enough. That way the next person doesn't see it and think, hey, they accept that item that we really don't accept. And being 24/7, it acquires a lot of material pretty quickly, since the public is always dropping off. and we're getting more and more people finding out about us. We're having to do more. When we first started, I could have one bin out there for plastic and one bin for cardboard, not have to worry about it for a week. But now I might have to worry about it twice a day when I have 4 bins for plastic and 10 bins for cardboard. I need to check on it twice a day sometimes. So it's definitely a 24-hour drop off. And it's definitely almost a 24-hour keep your eye on it, because we don't want it to get overflowing. We have neighbors. I don't want our now it's now our trash, so it's our responsibility. I don't want it on other people's property, and I don't want them to have to take responsibility for something that they didn't ask for. So we've asked for it, so we're trying to keep it as managed as we can.
Um, is it a strictly volunteer organization?
It's not strictly volunteer. It's grown so large that we can't get volunteers, not necessarily fast enough, but you can't just say, hey, volunteer, do this. You kind of have to be there and instruct and make sure things are getting done properly. And there's just a safety aspect. So volunteers are amazing, and we definitely take advantage of volunteers anytime we can. But it's to the point where we have to have hired help, and we have a couple people, one being my uncle, so he's related to you as well. They come on, and he started as a volunteer, and he would still be a volunteer, my uncle that I'm talking about. But he does so much work, it's past the point of volunteering. So I pay him, and every time I pay him, I got to put the money in his pocket because he doesn't want to accept it. But volunteers are great, but like I said, we have to have a few actual on-hand help. I started doing it myself, and then it grew from there. So the way we can afford this paid help is from donations from the people who drop stuff off. We have a Facebook page. We make videos showing what we do and explain the process, and the public that brings us the materials, most of them are happy to support our efforts because they don't want to see their stuff in the landfill either.
Well, you kind of just answered my next question, which is, do you really have the support of the community? Like, how supportive is the community to this? Not just those that want to recycle, but just everybody around you and your neighbors and things. Because as you said, I'm guessing it can get quite busy and things just by looking at your Facebook page. You know, here's these big trucks coming in to get the materials and things. So, you know, have your neighbors really accepted this and things?
They have. We just had a pickup today. You're talking about semis. We had a full semi trailer that you'd see on the truck show up today. We loaded it as full as we could get it with glass that we had broken, to get hauled off to be remade into who knows what fiberglass. They add it in roads as a filler, could be made into new glass. So that just happened today. Back to our neighbors and community. The community has been a huge help, and without them and the help of our city council in Benton, they've helped out with donations. This couldn't be done. With the help of the store, my family store, Save a Lot. I don't pay rent. I'm taking up their barn now. That barn is now our barn practically, and I don't pay rent. We've got electricity that comes from Save a Lot to the barn. I've not had an electric bill to this date. So without the help of my family's grocery store, the community, the city council, something like this is kind of hard to weave together. Recycling at the moment, it depends on the market, but at the moment, it's hard to get by unless you're at a very large level with a lot of materials. There's just a lot of labor costs, a lot of freight costs. And then when you do get rid of the materials, it's got to cover your truck at least to get it out of there. It's got to cover some stuff, and it's hard to cover everything. And that's where the community steps up. We have a drop-off donation box. People will drop quarters in, they'll drop dollars in, fives, tens, we'll get 100. We'll get a check mailed to us that a $2,000 donation, which allows us to buy new equipment out in the barn. The reason we have we moved away from the store's baler. Now we have our own baler out in the store's barn, and we recently bought a second baler. And this was made possible by donations from the community, which is amazing because we could not be where we are without outside help. And it has been very responsive.
Well, what I want to do, Andy, is I'm going to show a couple of pictures off of your Facebook page. So, you know, you're saying Baler and you're saying the barn and things like that. So I'm going to show a couple, I'm going to share my screen and show a couple of pictures.
Okay, cool.
And if you can, you know, talk a little bit like, oh yeah, that is this, and you know, this.
Okay, cool. Yeah, definitely.
I'll pull it up. So I will pull up a picture of your, well, let me share my screen first. That would help.
Yeah.
So let me share my screen here.
I'm seeing some stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so.
Boom. Well, that's our drop off right there. And that's pretty much what it looks like to date. These black bins you see over here in the right corner, that's what we use for cardboard. Now you can put multiple things in our bins. At least we will accept pretty much anything that comes from a tree. You got your cardboard, newspaper, mail, magazines. We'll take books. We pretty much bale all those materials together. Some places are different. The one that I mentioned that's 30 minutes away from me, it's a larger facility and they have a bin for just cardboard. They have a bin for just newspaper, a bin for just magazines. So drop-offs depend on the location that's hosting it. So we're able to mix all these materials together, bale them up, and the next company is either going to sort all those or they're all going to be put into the same batch to make something new. The reason you would separate them is they're different values. Cardboard is different than newspaper. It's made from fiber, and you can only recycle fiber so many times before the fibers no longer connect. So different types of cardboard and newspaper and mail, they all break down sort of differently and they all reconnect at different levels. So that's why different companies sort them out. We have bins for glass that are over to the left. We sort our glass by color, and then we break. I see you got one of our broken glass there.
Yeah, I was just going to pull that one up.
Yep, that bin in the bottom is of the glass that has been shattered, and the machine that's in the back is a very, very simple mechanism that you would take one beer bottle, one wine bottle, and drop it down the neck, and it's got a spinner that spins and just shatters the glass. This saves space when you're storing it and makes freight a lot more costly, because if you're sending bottles that are not broken, they're just full of air and you're losing a lot of weight on that truck. So breaking it like this allows us to fill these trucks up to their max weight load. So that machine gets ran quite often. My uncle, he pretty much does all the glass, and I think he loves doing it. He gets upset if one of our other guys will break glass. He's a little bummed out. So I think he likes that machine. Takes out some frustration.
I was going to say, it's probably a great way to take out some frustration.
It definitely is.
Now, here's one I wanted to show. Actually, get it up here. This is when I'll let you explain what's going on here.
That's our drop off from the air. I think this is when we first started. It is.
Yep.
I can personally tell by the bale shape. This was back when we were using the baler inside of Save-A-Lot. It is a little bit shorter and makes the bales wider instead of more square. So this is when we first started, hadn't even had a plastic pickup, didn't know what I was getting myself into. Am I going to be able to get rid of this material? I was collecting it, baling it, and in the middle of trying to find a company that would want it, because anybody can collect the materials, but somebody then has to want it and they have to be able to do something with it. So this is when I first dove in. What I'm standing on is bales of plastic what's in front of me is more bales of cardboard. And actually you can see laying down on the ground is the new baler that we had just purchased. So this was one of our first baler that we're putting out in the barn. We had just got it from a store that had closed down, had to haul it there on our own. It was a big ordeal getting it there because it's a heavy machine. It looks small in this picture, but when you're next to it, it's quite large.
So when you're talking about Baler, I happen to have those photos to share. And I believe this is your second baler,
That's
correct?
our second baler getting unloaded. And this was just the stars aligned. I had put the word out that we could use a second baler to help things move faster, which would save time, which would save labor costs. And the public responded. They donated and we saved the money. And a gentleman who helped me move the first baler found this one and hauled it to us. That's it right there, sitting on our lot. Hopefully it's still sitting out there. We got this probably a month ago, and we had to get our glass picked up to make room for this because we had 32 bins of glass inside of the barn, sitting where this needs to sit. So now we can put this machine in, get it hooked up, and start doing cardboard in one baler and plastic in the other. Right now, we're having to store plastic in bins until we can have enough cardboard to finish a bale, and then switch to plastic and then save the cardboard. So it's a lot of back and forth and switching stuff. So having two balers going is gonna hopefully make us just full steam ahead.
That's great. That's great that the community really rallied around you and were able to help you get that second baler, because I bet it really, as you said, saves time and effort of having a dedicated thing for each different type of
It will.
item.
And just with us growing, just having that one baler, it really, you can see the stuff adding up, and we're limited on space. You saw that parking lot, and that parking lot in that picture you had up, that's with nobody there. Normally there's employees parked in every single one of those parking spots for Save-A-Lot, because that's Save-A-Lot's employee parking lot that I've taken over. And not everybody fits in that lot. They have to park in our other side lot. So it's like I say, growing every day. So having the two machines will cut down on space as well. We'll be able to keep the stuff condensed rather than having it bulky sitting around waiting its turn to be squished. So it will be a good thing, I think.
Yeah, sounds like it's going to be amazing. So I guess one of the questions is, I'm at home and I'm done with my box of cereal. I'm done with my bottle of orange juice and, and things. What do I have to do with my items at home before I bring them to you? Like, do I really have to rinse out like the can of tomato soup before I throw it in the recycle bin? Let's talk about that. Like,
Yeah.
let's talk about, okay, let's do glass jars with lids, like tomato sauce jar. What do we have to do before we stick that in our recycling?
And it's not a deal breaker, but having the stuff clean as you can get it, doesn't have to be spotless, is definitely helpful. It keeps the bugs away, the stink out. It makes the material more desirable. Excuse me, if you have a bale of plastic or you've got a bin of glass and it's just covered in sauce and stuff, companies sometimes shy away. They're looking for a material to create something new in, and they might see it as not high quality or damaged, or there just could be multiple reasons. So having it rinsed out is a plus. It's sometimes not a deal breaker, but it definitely is a plus. And the way things need to be broken down and sorted, it depends on your city, and it depends on what the recycler you're dropping it off to wants. Some places can mix everything together, cardboard and plastic, and they'll even put glass, which we're finding out now is a bad idea because the glass will break and get poked into the cardboard, which now makes the cardboard less desirable. So we're finding out that sorting the materials like we do at our place, having just cardboard, just plastic, just glass, it makes it where we can provide materials that the market can buy that are more desirable. With back to glass, with us, we like the lids to be put back on. You can leave the labels on, just give it a quick rinse out, dump the water out, put the lid back on, and recycle it. This keeps the water out when it's sitting in our barrel. It keeps the water out, so then when we go to break it, it's just right in the machine and gets broken. The lid, the label stays in there, and the glass recycler has a high-tech machine with magnets to get most of the lids out, infrared sensors and air jets that get the labels and get the corks out. It's a high-tech process, and they might shy away if that glass is covered in spaghetti sauce because it's going through pretty high-tech equipment. And if the glass is all sludgy and nasty, they might not want to run it in their super fancy equipment. So they might shy away from you next time if you're providing glass that is not the best quality. And then again, it just depends on who's buying it. With cardboard, you talked about a cereal box. For us, it's great if you bust everything down to as flat as you can and put it in more cardboard. That way it's bundled up, ready to go. Most places, anywhere that you take cardboard, prefer it broke down. It's just gonna save on space. If you're filling up bins with boxes that are empty, it takes up a lot of room and a lot more time to empty out bins that are just half full when you're moving them back and forth. Aluminum cans. We can mix aluminum cans, at least at our facility, in with the plastics like your water bottles and milk jugs. You can mix in aluminum. You can mix in your steel cans. The next place it's going to go to has, again, high-tech sorters that can detect what type of plastic it is. If it's steel, they have a magnet that'll pull it out. They send an electrical charge through the aluminum, which makes it magnetic for just a little bit. So then they can pull the aluminum out with a magnet as well. So they have ways of sorting this stuff. But we also like when people bring us just aluminum because we can take it off and gain more money. When things are separated, you can sell it to a specific market who doesn't have to buy it from somebody else who has already sorted it. So there's different ways that you can do it, and it depends a lot on where you're at and what the recycler wants at the time.
I guess one of my questions is, what is a very common item that people do bring to the recycling center thinking that it's recyclable and it's really not?
That's a good question. That's a very good question. Before I answer that, let me describe plastic to us. So we have soft plastic and we have hard plastic. Soft plastic is your grocery bag. You go to Walmart, you get a grocery bag. You have a Ziploc bag. You get bubble wrap. Anything like that is soft plastic, and that goes by itself together. Hard plastic is your water jugs, milk jugs, laundry detergent, and things like that. So those are two different types of plastic. The most common item that we get with the soft plastic that is not soft plastic is your chip bags, your candy wrappers. A lot of the time, what those materials are, your chip bag is what they call multi-layer. So it's usually some foil, some plastic put together, which is super hard to recycle. There are far and few between companies who are able to separate that stuff. So 95% of the time, your chip bag is going straight into the trash. And we see a lot of those, and we try to get with people and explain the difference. And once you know, it's easier to locate. But if you're just thinking scrunchy bag, then it's easy to mix that in. With hard plastic, the most guided thing would probably be glass in there with it. We try to have signs up that say no glass, and we have an area that is just for glass, but it still gets mixed in. We're able to accept 1 through 7 plastic. And what that means, I don't know, a lot of you guys might know, some people had no idea there's 7 different types of plastic. And if you have a water bottle, you have a milk jug, turn that upside down. You have a McDonald's cup, turn it upside down, it'll have a number on it. McDonald's, it's going to say number 5. Your water bottle is going to say number 1. Your milk jug and laundry detergent is going to say number 2. And those are different. So a number 1 is not the same as number 5. So those have to be separated later on. We're lucky enough to be able to accept 1 through 7 in the same bin, and then they can go to the next place who's going to sort them according to their number. And that place doesn't want soft plastic. Let me re-answer your question. The most misguided thing that goes in the hard plastic would be soft plastic. People will add soft plastic in with the hard, not knowing, and that's wrong. The company that gets it after us has to sort those 7 different types of plastic, and their machine that spins around to break the materials up, the soft plastic gets tangled up in it and can cause problems. So that's why you have to keep the soft plastic by itself. It goes to a totally different place, and the hard plastic, the steel and aluminum, can go to at one place. So they have to be sorted. The equipment that breaks them apart and sorts stuff later on can cause problems if you get the 2 mixed up.
So I guess it would be safe to say that, it's you having to educate the community on how to separate things and what you can accept, because if it doesn't happen and you're not vigilant, then you're not able to send the materials away, and then you would kind of not be able to recycle in that area because there would be no companies to take it. So very good about educating the community and things. One of my questions also is, how do you educate the community? Is it just through your Facebook page, or do you actually go out and talk to the school kids? I mean, I know with COVID and things right now, you probably don't do that, but pre-COVID, like, did you go to the schools? Did you go to community events and really talk to people and things?
Yes, definitely. Education and lack of education is a huge problem. You think recycling, my phone's plastic, we'll recycle it. And it's like, no, not even close. And it's no big deal it is a big deal, but it's not on the public. It's just, we were never taught how to recycle. So education is key, and we try to do it any way we can. Our Facebook is a huge help. We've got signs that say, add us on Facebook. And I post videos. Something happens on our drop off that's wrong, I try to make a video and explain why it's wrong, how to do it right. If you're there dropping stuff off and I see you put something in the wrong bin, I try to correct it right then, just so you're not doing it wrong. And if we find something out there that's wrong, we try to get it cleaned up as fast as possible. That way the next person isn't confused and thinking that this thing that they're seeing that's incorrect is correct. So staying up on it is a huge part. We've not done it in a little while. The public has been pretty good and been getting in the groove quite often. When we first started, we had a lot of stuff that was done incorrect. And I think the town was just unused to recycling and maybe used to the old way of recycling and didn't know what that was. We would get stuff that was really messed up, and it would have their address or their mail. We would go to their house, knock on their door politely, and even have what they brought and just explain, hey, this is how you brought it. This is how it needs to be done. We're doing this as a public service, trying to save the stuff in the landfill. So if you can do it correctly, it's just going to help us get this stuff done even faster. And anybody that we've talked to like that was super happy that we contacted them or we educated them, because I had no idea, I thought plastic was plastic, and I didn't know that you had to separate this from that. And so education through any means necessary has been a super helpful tool. And we have spoken with several different schools in our own county and counties over. We've went to garden clubs. We've went to Rorty Club meetings, however you say that. So anybody who's got questions or wants to know more, we're happy to talk to, just like I'm here now talking to you guys, letting you know recycling's not cut and dry. If you have questions, ask the questions to me, to your local recycler. Recycling the right way is way more helpful than you think.
So I do have $1 million question for you.
Yeah.
And you answered it, but plastic water bottles, when we drink them, or even a plastic soda bottle, do we put the cap back on it and put it in the recycling bin, or do we do the cap and the bottle separate? Because I remember when recycling started, it was always that the plastic on the cap is different from the plastic in the bottle. And so the bottle was recyclable, but the cap wasn't. I remember that, and so I find myself always taking the cap off. But what is the truth? What do we truly do?
Recycling, again, is not as cut and dry as we wish it could be, but companies are realizing this, and they're realizing the problem of the two different plastics on one material. And a lot of them have jumped to change, and they're now making the caps and the bottles the same material. And a lot of them are labeling so you can look at your cap or look at the side of your water bottle, and a lot of things now have instructions. It'll tell you to empty and replace cap. I say empty it out, squeeze some air out, and put your cap back on. That is how I instruct the public at our place to do it. Please put those caps back on. When they're not on, it creates a mess, and they're so much harder. If they could ever be recycled and they're loose by themselves, it's so hard to get them to the final destination to actually be recycled. Those bales are huge, and they're held together by pressure. So when there's a little bitty cap, it falls out, and you'll look, and there'll be little materials, straws, caps, broken pieces of plastic. That stuff, it's so hard to get to the final stages, because you're the first step, we're the second step. We send it to a sorter, they're the third step. Somebody's going to buy it from them. Hopefully that person make something new of it. They might just be a contractor who's a middleman, so it might have to go to another person. So this bale has to hold its integrity, and that little cap has got to make it through several steps. So attaching it to something larger is going to up its chances to actually make it. Some companies may not have jumped on the bandwagon of the same materials, but most have, and most bottles or most boxes have instructions on what to do, which is nice. So pay attention to those whenever you can. And if it's not on there, I say go with the cap method and put it back on. Some people would say they make benches from caps. Save the caps. We're going to make, this company is going to make a park bench. That's all fine and dandy. But we have so many people dropping just caps off to us because they were saving them for somebody who was going to make this bench out, and now we're stuck with just caps. And it's like, well, what do we do with these caps? And I've tried to contact other people looking for them, and it's just easier if you put it back on and get it recycled, and it's done.
Okay, great. So what I'm going to do now is open it up for questions. So if you have a question, you can type it in the chat, or you can turn your camera on and your microphone on. Don't forget the microphone if you have a question. But turn your camera on, ask Andy or myself any questions that you might have, and we can see if we can answer them. Let's see. I see a question down here.
Tulsaville is in the process of building a recycle center. What should they do what should they do to for the facility facilitate recycling? What do they need to have? Well, you got to have space. It requires a lot of space. Depends on your growth. You need some dry storage. Oh, you're fine with the typo. I'm not a good typer. I'm not a good reader. It requires some dry space. You need some dry storage. You got your shredded paper that they're going to want dry. They've got the cardboard. They sometimes want it dry. Glass. If you're breaking glass, you need some dry stuff. It requires usually a forklift. This material is heavy and you're going to have a way to stack it. You're going to have to way to get it loaded on a truck. So usually a loading dock sometimes. That's when our Save-A-Lot grocery store has came into handy. They have a forklift. They have a pallet jack. They have a loading dock. So if I didn't have these things, these are essential at least for how we operate. I wouldn't be able to do it. So having a space that you can load trucks is going to be a major thing if you're making bales. And then you have to have a baler, you got to have the electricity and the time. It's not, when I first started doing it, I thought it took up a lot of time and I was having vacation back then. It's a lot of material all the time. Think of how much stuff that you guys use on a daily basis. Go into Walmart and just think, how much plastic is in here? You'll be blown away. It's insane. And we see that all the time. So just having a community support, people around recycling and getting the community involved and really uplifting the idea that you're doing something good and not recycling is a long-term bad game plan. So getting it out there is definitely something helpful and useful as well when you're trying to start a recycle center. Anybody else have anything? I hope that answered your question. I know it was kind of all over the place.
I think one of the things that I always think about is how every community is so different on what can and cannot be recycled.
That's
and
what's
how
horrible.
and how to separate things. I know when I go visit my parents in the Philadelphia area, if it's recyclable, it all just goes in one large bin. And they have the yellow bins for the big yellow trash can on wheels is for recyclables and the black one is for trash. And you just put everything in there. And then on Monday, the trash pickup comes. And then on Tuesday, they come and they pick up the yellow bins and just dump it all into one big truck and it drives off. But I know where I used to live in Pittsburgh, we had a plastic bin and a glass bin. We had 3 bins, glass, plastic, and paper that we had to put out every Tuesday for recycling and things. So it is very different. And yeah, so it does vary from community to community. But what I like about this discussion is the fact of it's just explaining to people what exactly all goes on. One question I do have for you, Andy, is pizza boxes. Are pizza boxes recyclable?
You know, it depends on how messy they are. And I'll send my whole pizza box off 80% of the time. I've heard multiple different answers. I've heard tear the top off, which is not greasy, recycle it, throw the base away. 80% of the time I'm recycling the whole thing as long as it's not covered in cheese. It's not just completely soaking, sopping wet in grease. If it's just a little bit residuey, that's fine. The material that we put with cardboard is going to have other residue and other stuff on it, and it'll be okay. So you got a little bit of grease, a little bit of cheese, it's okay. If it's the greasiest pizza you ever ate, maybe separate them and recycle the clean top, throw the bottom away. So then again, not just a cut and dry yes no answer, but it seems that that's so much of recycling, and it's a bummer. This place accepts this and does it this way. This place accepts this and doesn't do it that way. And that's where we're going crazy here. It's a bummer that it's like that, but that's the way it is. And you kind of just got to work with what you have and work with what they accept. We used to send, the United States used to send our materials overseas to China. empty shipping containers were getting shipped back. So they would fill them up with recycling, and China would sort them, use what they could use, and landfill, burn the rest. That became an issue. They were having too much pollution from our trash. So they said no more. So we ran out of places to send our stuff. Some other countries will open up for a little while and start accepting materials, and then they run into the same problem that China had and say no more. So I think the United States is slowly catching up, slowly building our own reprocessing centers. And once we get the infrastructure to handle the materials that we consume and create, maybe we'll get some more straight answers and more cut and dry. This is what we need. This is what you're doing. This is the way. But until then, it's so wishy-washy, and so many places are taking it and they'll do it this way and this place doesn't. So that's why it's so hard to give just a yes, no answer on things.
Okay, great. When I just thought of something that we were talking about, Andy doing education and things. I am working with Andy to actually try to get him to come out and be part of our summer camp program this year, to work with the kids and do some neat recycling activities and things. So that'll be quite really fun. And maybe we can get Andy to talk to the people of Titusville in their recycling center and give them some pointers and tips. And
that would be awesome. That's one thing that I've done before I started. And while I started, I went to, when I took a trip to Colorado, I went and seen several recycle centers out there. When I was in Florida, several there. When I went to Tennessee, several there. And seeing how they do it, seeing what works, it's a helpful thing. You can find out what you need to do, how it's done. I've learned so much, and I'm learning every day. And talking to the kids out at the camp, getting it put in their minds, this recycling, landfill, okay, I use this, it goes to the landfill, it's forever. Getting a small planted bug in their head at that age, I think, is something that is going to change the future. If we can make the youth understand the concept of waste and what happens to it. So I'm super excited if we can get out to that camp and make that happen.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's great. I mean, you're proof that if you're determined enough, you can do it. You can really help your community and do recycling. So I think that's an amazing thing as well, is, and why you're a great advocate for recycling and helping people understand how it's done and things. Does anyone else have any questions or anything for Andy? I do encourage you all to check out Andy's Facebook page, the Do Your Part Recycling Drop-Off. And when you type that into this little search bar on Facebook, he's the first one to pop up. I think there might be one other one but it's spelt a little differently, but
they're not nearly as good as us.
No, never. Do Your Part Recycling. You want the one in Benton, Illinois. And on Andy's Facebook page, he has his contact information, so you can always pop him an email and ask some questions. Or if you are not on Facebook and you want some contact information for Andy or have a question for Andy, you can always pop an email to me here at the museum. I'll put my email address into the chat, and we can get you in touch with Andy to ask questions and things about recycling, or helping, how to set up recycling and do things in your community. Are there any questions or anything?
I see you're saying I need to come speak at the city council meeting. I have done my fair share of council meetings. It's crazy. I when I first started, I went to all the surrounding towns pleading and begging, let's get this recycling back up. So I've done my council meetings. So I probably know my way around. Yeah.
That would be great. That would be great to get you out here to do that. And, it is, Andy, why you are here tonight. I mean, if it wasn't for Colonel Drake and his drilling of this well, we wouldn't have plastic. So to be
Plastic is
recycled.
oil. Yeah, people
Yeah,
don't realize that. Plastic comes from oil. That's why it's around for so long. It just
yeah,
doesn't just break down that easily. So yep, without the Drakewell Museum, plastic wouldn't be what it is.
yeah, exactly. So if no one has any questions or anything, we are going to wrap up tonight's program. I want to thank everybody for coming out, and please join us actually next week for our next installment in this series on, oh, I just went blank. How horrible is that? Let me double check here the date, January 20th. January 20th at 6:30. We are going to have Cecile Stelter come or present to us. She is going to speak about firewood and give you amazing information on the do's and don'ts of firewood and what firewood is right, what firewood's not. And then also check out the Drakewell website, drakewell.org, for our events the 2 weeks in February. So this is a four-part series, and each night is going to be a different topic. So I really encourage you all to check us out. And if we have no further questions or anything, I want to again say thank you. Thank you, Andy, so much for taking your time to present to us tonight. And
Definitely.
thank goodness you and I figured out the time difference.
5:30 here. No, it's 6:30 now.
Yeah, 6:30 and it's 7:30 here. So, you know, that almost got Andy and I yesterday. We did a little trial run, and all of a sudden it clicked with both of us that there was the time difference. So I'm so glad we did that practice run yesterday and got that time difference figured out. But again, thank you everybody for joining us. And also know that if you want to know more, just check out Andy's Facebook page or contact the museum. We can get you in touch with Andy. And again, remember that this program will be available on our YouTube channel, which if you go onto YouTube in the search engine, just type in Drakewell Museum and Park and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll find this video and also a lot of other great information on that video. So thank you so much, Andy. Thank you everybody for attending, and everyone have a great night. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.